studio. It's just so much nicer. Hopefully I won't get too many complaints about the volume and the lighting. And thank you, Tony. You're doing a great job there and making everything come together here. And so I want to thank my audience for tuning in. Today, obviously, is a very triggering kind of subject. So this is a trigger warning here for those of you who perhaps are already experiencing some level of PTSD or old symptoms of PTSD. We're going to be talking about the effects of sexual abuse on the psyche. And first of all, a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Judy Rosenberg, creator of the Mind Map System for Healing Human Disconnect, and also founder of the Psychological Healing Center. And I have a beautiful staff of people who help me with the healing and the mind map work. So all of you are welcome to call in for a consultation. And by the way, if you do like the show, don't forget to press the button like, and also you're welcome to leave a review here. So to get into the topic, and you all know that this is a call-in show, and for anonymity, please use another name, and I think everybody will feel better about that, so not to expose everybody's or anybody's privacy. So I'm going to start with a little statistics. I'm going to read them off because I don't remember statistics. So 93% of child victims, they know their abuser. So can you imagine being violated by somebody that you know and trust? Victims are 3 times more likely to experience a major depressive episode sometime in their life after being sexually abused. One study shows that 32% of child sexual abuse victims attempt suicide. So this is not just a one-time occurrence or a chronic occurrence. This is heavily impactful on the psyche. 1 in 20 boys are victims of sexual abuse, so it doesn't only happen to females. And children are most vulnerable between the ages of 7 and 13. And it is happening in epidemic proportions. 1 of 9 females experience sexual abuse, and 4 times are more likely to develop drug abuse and use after having such an experience. So I want to start by introducing the mind map so that we can mind map this system gone wrong, a terrible system gone wrong, often multi-generational. And what I mean by that is sometimes it passes from family member to family member. Grandma, grandpa maybe were abused, and then they hand that horrific behavior down to the next generation and the next generation, and each generation becomes vulnerable. And as Dr. Murray Bowen, father of systems theory, somebody that I hold near and dear to my heart because I am a systems thinker, he said that each generation, if we don't heal, is just going to break down further and further. And we're seeing this, of course, not only in our families, we're seeing it in our communities, in our country, and of course globally, because this thing is growing like a mushroom and going viral. So this is a broad topic. I'm going to try to cover a lot of ground here. There's sexual abuse in the form of somebody being raped. There's sexual abuse by someone being molested within the family or raped and molested in the family. There's sexual abuse on a different scale. Sex trafficking, that's sexual abuse. And there are just so many ways that children, young adults are being sexually abused. Of course, the topic is very broad, including child brides, which is just yet another form of sexual abuse. So let's start by some of the symptoms that people exhibit when sexually abused. It creates a trauma. And trauma creates PTSD. And if trauma is chronic, then we end up with chronic PTSD, which is complex PTSD, which is CPTSD as initials that maybe some of you have heard about. I refer to complex PTSD as old, unprocessed wounds that still live in the psyche. They reverberate, and the body can talk in terms of symptoms. And then, of course, we have to kind of read the hieroglyphics to understand the way that the body is communicating the trauma. So that's a lot of what we do at the Psychological Healing Center, is we connect the dots between symptoms and what happened and the effects on the psyche. And the point is to make the unconscious conscious, because if everything's unconscious, then we're in this dark zone of not knowing. And when we don't know, then we act out or we act in. So let me tell you the difference. Acting out is when we project our anger onto others and we are externally expressing our anger. Acting in is when we hurt ourselves, when we turn it inward. Examples would be cutting yourself. Examples would be slowly killing yourself with drugs and alcohol. And of course, this can lead to suicide, whereas the acting out can lead to harm to others and sometimes homicide. So I want to just recollect my experience with sexual abuse. I've had a lot of patients come see me around this topic, and oftentimes they'll come in because they're having intimacy problems within the relationship. And this is not surprising, because when someone has been violated, okay, when they've been sexually violated, they no longer feel safe. And so when they no longer feel safe, the partner can become a trigger for their PTSD. And I remember a case that I worked on many, many years ago when I was an intern. I had a case of a young woman, of course, keeping her privacy. I don't honestly even remember her name. I just remember that she was married, she was symptomatic, she had a really, really hard time with her husband because she didn't want to be too intimate with him. And of course, he wasn't too happy about this. And it came out in the following symptoms. So now you can kind of get the sense of how this detective work is done. So what was I hearing? I was hearing her speak about gagging responses. I was hearing her speak about being touched and recoiling. I was hearing specifically that every time she was touched on the back, she would just have this aversive feeling in the pit of her stomach. And of course, this was not going to bode well for a marriage, nor was it going to bode well for her goal, which was to have a child and have a stable environment. And you could see that the sexual abuse was absolutely visiting the here and now. And so this was pre-mind map. I was pre-doctoral. I didn't know much about these connecting the dots, but somehow we followed the symptoms and we kept speaking about them. And as she processed her feelings of anger and betrayal and sadness and all kinds of deep, dark, buried feelings that were only coming out at the time in the form of symptoms, we connected the dots back to actually who done it and what happened. Turns out that it was a family member in her case. And so the transference, so to speak, to her husband as the trigger of the abuse became clearer and clearer. And pretty soon she was able to understand that it was not, of course, her husband that was the threat. It was something that was buried deep inside of her, because what child really wants to talk about or remember that kind of violation? So this is a call-in show, everyone, and I want you to understand the mind map, and please do call in. I really enjoy talking to my audience, and I also want everyone to know that you can have a free PDF copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. and that PDF is free. And if you want to order it off of Amazon, you can get the hard copy off of Amazon. And if you want to learn the mind map without therapy, that's possible too. Some people just want to learn the system, and I created a 9-panel mind map journey so that you could learn about what I'm about to explain to you. And then with it, of course, you get the PDF of the book, and you get the journal, and you get the video. You can combine it with services, of course. So let me get into the mind map so that you can understand it better. And as I've been told, repetition is the mother of learning. So I know I repeat the mind map every session, every YouTube episode, because I really want you to learn, connect the dots, be conscious, and not live in this unconscious, trigger-happy place where you're easily activated and then go down into a bunch of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So if you look at the mind map, the first 3 rows represent the encodings of the past. So what are these encodings? So if you look at panel 1, the light in the background represents your full potential. In other words, what it would be like if you grew up relatively free of abuses and neglects. The dark spots are the shadows that limit our growth, that traumatize us, that create the shadows that block us from manifesting the best of our best. And the shadow we're focusing on today is sexual abuse. Other shadows, and sometimes they go with sexual abuse, is physical abuse, verbal abuse, control, smothering, emotional neglect, and narcissistic abuse, which can include all of the above, but specifically narcissistic abuse is when the parents lack empathy and they just don't care enough, and they end up demeaning and devaluing and destroying their own children and their own families and relationships. So those are the shadows, and remember, we are not crazy. We're made crazy, and then we crack up and distort the view of ourselves in the world, and then this whole thing encodes in panel number 3 as horrible, horrible core beliefs that reverberate throughout the course of life. So it's not like that event or series of events goes away over time. Somebody just asked me, will this go away over time? And I have to say no, because we have to process the feelings. We can't just medicate them. We can't just do yoga and pretend that we're going to come out of the yoga session with a clear head. Yes, yoga is very important. Yes, meditation is very important. All of these things that people do to calm down their amygdala and stay healthy, absolutely. It's just that it's not going to go into those childhood wounds and the effects of them on the psyche. So unfortunately, we've got to go in before we get out. So this is a call-in show, everyone, and I would love to hear from you. And we can connect the dots, and in the meantime, understand that this experience is a real sense of betrayal to the individual, especially if it happens. I'll read that statistic again. I couldn't believe this myself. 93% know their abuser. Okay, so 93% are experiencing sexual abuse from an inside job, whether it be a grandfather, an uncle, a grandmother, a family friend, a babysitter, your own mother, father. So let's talk about what this does to a human being. So imagine, and again, depending on the age of the child, and this can take place from very early on up at really at any age and stage. And the earlier the violation, the more traumatic, obviously, on the body. You can imagine a baby being violated, and sometimes so severely that they dissociate, where they just, meaning they've got to leave the situation mentally because it's so traumatic. So people often say, "Oh, Dr. Judy, I'm dissociating. I don't remember." Well, that's actually a great defense mechanism against such a dire form of violation. Such a deep wound is going to call for a very, very radical form of splitting off or dissociating. And of course, children die when they are sexually abused. They may die because their body simply cannot take it. They can die because they're literally threatened by relatives who will say to them, you know, if you tell, I'll kill your parents or I'll kill you, and no one will ever know because I'll make it look like an accident. So this is beyond human comprehension to the average good-hearted individual, and unfortunately it's happening all over the globe. And so depending on the age and stage and who done it and the reaction to what happened, is the level of trauma the child will carry with him or her. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say somebody in the family violated a child, and the child goes to mom, or goes to dad, or goes to grandma, or goes to grandpa and says, "Grandma, grandpa, mom and dad, Uncle Henry, I don't know how to tell you this, but Uncle Henry told me to do some really, really bad, sexy things. And I feel really, really ashamed. And he told me that it was my fault." And so, if mom and dad take the child seriously, which they oftentimes don't take the child seriously, then that's a really big support to the child. So the child needs to know that there's an enlightened witness in their court, somebody who says, "Okay, I'm listening. Tell me, tell mommy, tell daddy, tell grandma, grandpa, what happened, who did this to you." And then, of course, they're going to be scared to say, because 9 times out of 10 they've been threatened to not speak. So you can imagine the pressure on the child. However, if the parent takes the child seriously and investigates the situation, and then isolates the abuser and gets help for the family, and that includes sometimes calling the Department of Child Protective Services and making a report and getting the perpetrator help, then that's what it takes. But most of the time, or too many times, the parents don't take the child seriously. And not only do they not take the child seriously, they don't want anybody to know that this happened. Can you imagine if you're married and your husband and your wife abused your own child, and you love that person, and now you're in this dilemma because you love your husband, you love your wife, but wow, they just abused your mutual child. So what a conundrum this is. And so sometimes people will actually hide the abuse because they don't want to split the family. I know of a patient who was told by her mother that she shouldn't tell anybody in the family about the uncle that tried to rape her, because it would split the family apart. So now we've got a few problems here, okay? We've got the traumatization, we've got the child wondering if they should get help. They now know that they can't get help through the parent that they're going to, and now they're burying the secret, and now they don't know how to look the perpetrator in the eyes. And I believe we have a call-in. Thank you so much for calling. And you can use any name you like. Hello. And thank you for calling in.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, maybe you can turn up the volume so I can hear you better. I think
Okay, how's that?
I think I'm getting some tech support. so that I
Is
can,
that better?
yeah, that's so much better.
Oh,
Thank you so much. So,
oh,
yeah, so
sure.
use a name so I can call you by name, but don't use your name.
Oh, you can use my name.
Okay, okay. So, what would you like me to call you?
Oh, Krista.
Okay, Krista. So, tell me how you relate to this particular topic.
Okay, so I actually relate to it in the sense that I grew up with a mom who swept things under the rug like that.
Yeah,
The abuse, the
sorry.
sexual abuse. I was traumatized at the age of 4 by my natural father.
Wow. Okay.
And when I went to tell her, she still shoved it under the rug. Even
Yeah.
to this day, at 52 years old, I've been working very diligently,
Mm-hmm.
removing all the wounds. And I saw your diagram, and I work with that. And I
Okay.
just want to thank you so much for saying it
You're
because,
so welcome,
you
and
know,
I think it's
yeah,
such a
yeah,
tragedy because the wound now is not just the sexual wound. I'll let you
right,
I'll
right.
let you call it because I think you know. So now you're feeling what by
Mm.
your mom?
So I do have a deep, deep, deep betrayal from
That's
my
the
mom
word.
that she
That
didn't.
is the word. Yes.
Yeah, the betrayal is what I can point to. So I pick up those broken pieces and I actually forgive her on a daily. But
Mm-hmm.
I recently lost my brother to an overdose suicide. And when you
Wow.
mentioned about how bad it can become, that's what happened to my brother because he was abused by my dad too.
Sexually
And
abused? Sexually?
uh, not sexually, but
Mm-hmm.
physically and emotionally.
Okay.
So, but I can say one thing the way I look at it now that he's gone, the trouble was he never validated those traumas. And at the same time, he turned it outward instead of inward. And he
Mm-hmm.
used substances to numb himself a lot too. Right?
So your brother, actually, the way I see it is he turned it inward because he self-attacked.
Hmm.
Okay, does that make
He
sense?
really did. Yeah.
So he numbed
Yeah. So
himself.
when you
He
talked
saw.
about the self attack, it's like I beat myself up a lot because I feel like I can't forgive my mom. You know?
That's a
And
very
yet,
big
part of my
topic.
growth is actually validating that it happened. And every day I tell my little 4 year old that you're okay. Like, I'm 52 years old. Seriously?
Mm-hmm. Is your mother still alive?
She is. And what's really creepy
Mm-hmm.
is how she handled my brother's death because she, I was 3,000 miles away from her. And on, so my younger half sister called and they really drove him over the edge. And I know they did because, emotionally, I don't think he could have hurt a fly, but the way he, you know, didn't do some of the most healthy things for himself, then he would say things and it would be out of pain, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would ever act on it.
Well,
So,
you're
but it's just such a loss. And I think about what you say is the kids, when they go to tell their parents, it's the same cycle, right?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's not always a good idea to tell the parents, right? Because in your case, look what happened. So what do you do? So um, I'm going to quote Alice Miller, who was a psychoanalyst, and she wrote the book um, Drama of a Gifted Child, and her take was that children would rather be the bad child, meaning blame themselves, than blame the parent
Mm-hmm.
and or the parents. And parents kind of count on
Mm-hmm.
that, and they even use it against the child, like, "Oh, it was your fault. Maybe you were provocative, or you shouldn't go over there. You know better. You're a little girl. He's a
Mm-hmm.
man." And these are absolutely not excuses. However, as
Right.
I was mentioning before your call, this is the dilemma. So your parents were married. She didn't leave your father, correct?
Oh, she did leave him.
Oh, she did
Finally.
leave him. She finally left him.
Hmm.
Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, and he was. Listen, she left him, but she never got us any therapy for it, and like she got herself involved in another toxic relationship with another alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so this gentleman like always had bedroom eyes for me. I'm like, ew, So I lived in a flight or fight mode for a lot of years because the unhealed trauma.
So
Hmm.
she left him. She replaced him with a toxic alcoholic. Yes. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. 6 years later, and this guy is no better. As a matter of fact, this guy actually solicits young girls for favors and trades off Percocets for them.
oh my God. And you know this is all reportable. So if this is happening in your life and you know of a
Mm-hmm.
child or a young adolescent, once you turn 18, I think that's the legal age of adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you can
Mm-hmm.
you get the voice of going yourself to the police and so on. However, when you're young, you don't have much of a voice, you don't have power. So for people who are
Mm-hmm.
listening and you know someone who is perpetrating, you don't have to say your name. You can make an anonymous call and they will
Right, I
investigate.
did. I made an anonymous call, and when I was even in the town living, I had to move 3,000 miles away from that guy. I
Yeah,
went to pick up my son one night,
yeah.
and he was yelling at my mom, and it was sad because he was drunk. He had Percocet on board,
Mhm.
and here's the thing: he was not my brother's father. What's really creepy? No blood, no blood. I asked for them to hold the body. Let me get my last rites in. Let me get my time in. I don't give a shit what he looks like. I'm a nurse for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
but see the
So I
emotional.
went ahead to
Mhm.
the coroner and I had feelings about this. Okay. I really did. And I got his toenails and I got his fingernails. I got him tested. I wanted to see really what was it? What was it? What's going on? What did he overdose on and why did he hang himself? Well, you know what? I don't think he hung himself. I think my stepdad did it. That's not the DNA. The DNA that's under his nails are my stepdad's
Well, you wanted to
DNA.
know the
Hmm.
truth. Your mother didn't want to know the truth. And why don't people want to know the truth? Because they have an agenda. They don't
Right.
want to break up the marriage. They don't want to break up the
Mhm.
toxic tie. And I'm just in a,
Ew. And you know what I hate? That's the toxic tie.
hmm right? They
Can
don't
you
want to
talk
break
about
it
that?
right, because that's addicting in and of itself. So for your mother to break a tie with even someone who's a sexual predator and an alcoholic, she's going to have to go through withdrawal. So can you see how she would be
Oh, yes.
protecting
And then her
herself?
whole facade would be broken, right?
Right, exactly. But
It's like
as
a shattered glass.
yeah, so breaking a toxic tie is worse than withdrawing from heroin. And I'm in the process now of creating a mind map healing system for healing from narcissistic abuse. I hope to be done with it in the next 2, 3 months and have it edited and ready to go.
Oh,
And
God, yes.
yeah,
Bring
it's
it.
so
Mm.
important, and it's going to be. Well, I've already started writing it. It's really going to be an in-depth video, and the the area that I'm specifically going for is the abuse of apathy. Okay, because there's nothing worse than I don't give a damn. All right,
Oh,
nothing worse than that. A kid would rather be
well,
slapped,
I,
right?
yeah, you can say it twice again. There's nothing worse than,
Nothing worse.
say it again because that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what we are missing here. People use the word
Hmm.
narcissistic abuse. I use the phrase the abuse of apathy. I am disconnected. I don't care. I can't care.
Yeah.
And that's the loneliest feeling for a child, to realize that mother doesn't care, father doesn't care. And out of apathy, is born sexual abuse or verbal abuse or physical abuse. But as I say in my video, I'm giving some of it away. Just because you're slapped or name called, it doesn't mean that your parents necessarily are narcissistic. Not that those are great things. It's just that when a parent truly lacks empathy, now we've got a problem. And what you're talking about is this deep sense of betrayal where your mother put her own feelings before you. She put her relationship and her toxic tie, I'll say it again, with your father and then this other person before the safety of her own children. And that's a horrible system gone wrong. Okay, so how do you heal from this? As you must know, you've got to deal with betrayal. And I want to speak for a moment on the topic of forgiveness. I personally am not a fan of immediate forgiveness. It's a process, and sometimes it's not appropriate just to give people a pass card. My take on it is that forgiveness is earned. Okay, so some parents never earn the forgiveness because they're not that conscious. And I think the person to forgive really is forgive yourself for not being aware and conscious enough and powerful enough to stop the abuses and the neglects. And that's who you really turn to for forgiveness. I forgive myself for not knowing better. I forgive myself for blaming myself for this mess. I forgive myself. Now, if you over time evolve into forgiving your parents, then that's your journey, and that's a natural process, and that's something that's between you and you. But this automatically forgiving the perpetrator, I don't think it's authentic. I just don't. You know, unless you're the Buddha or Christ or Moses or somebody that's really evolved and can truly stand back and recognize that, you know, I don't know what they recognize, but they come to this level. But most people are not at that level, and you've got to go through the feelings, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal.
You got to feel it all.
Okay, go through it all. So I really appreciate you calling in and sharing this, because people need to know. And I know I have another call, so please, you're welcome to call the Psychological Healing Center, and I wish you all the best and good for you. Okay, that you're healing.
I'm going to get your new book. I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay, awesome.
Enjoy. Okay,
awesome.
Bye now.
Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.
And yes, thank you so much. Hi, you are on the couch. Here we have, what is your name, please? Hello?
Oh, my name is Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, nice to meet you. And Elizabeth, what has you calling tonight? How do you relate to this topic?
Yeah. I'm pretty with you. I'm pretty I'm sorry, not my original language is English, but I understood everything.
Okay.
But I am with you, and when you said everything is a process.
It's a process, yeah.
And I learned. Say that again? I'm sorry.
I was wondering, is this something that you underwent yourself, is sexual abuse?
Yeah, I had that when I was a child.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've been sexual abuse, yes. And I can't remember exactly because I get paralyzed.
Yeah, that's par for the course. Right, that's the dissociation, the numbness. Yes. Do you know approximately how
I forgot.
old?
Yeah, I forgot what happened, everything. You know, it's something like it's not recording in my mind.
Yes, yes.
But I know happened.
You know it did happen. Do you know how old you
used
were?
To be my mother around 11, 12. Can you hold on 1 second, please?
Yeah. Okay. Are you there? I'll hold a second. So you can see, I'll just kind of talk through what she's talking about, this dissociation. When it is so painful, people will leave. Defense mechanism, very natural, normal. It doesn't mean you're psychotic, doesn't mean you're crazy. It means that you've been made crazy and sick. So, like I say, we're not sick, we've been made sick. Are you back with us? Okay, I'll hold on a minute. And do we have another call? Okay, so call back. I'm going to take the other call, and I hope that you do address it, and nobody has to be inauthentic about this and sweep under the rug. So, hello, you are on the couch, and what name would you like me to call you by?
Hey, Dr. Judy, it's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for calling in. And so, yeah, tell me how you relate to the topic.
As you know, I've had several instances of it, like first in early childhood, and then later on with a priest.
Yes.
Like what you were saying. Like one thing that's like really been helpful for me lately is to realize how important it is to be witnessed and to have it validated. Because like when the abuse happened to me the second time, I was of age.
Yeah.
And so well, it's not abuse; it was consensual. And when you just spoke with her about dissociation,
yes,
like I always remembered it, but I always was watching it. Like I never would feel the feelings.
That derealization. It's almost that's a great way of describing it, because you don't want to be in your body. I mean, who wants to be in the body when this is happening? It's almost like you want to leave. So that's where you're watching it, where you're right, and there's a kind of a numbness there, and it allows you at least to survive the situation. So it's nice to hear your voice, by the way. How you doing in general?
I'm doing pretty good. I've had some challenges lately. I have had a problem with my leg, but I think I've been in such pain, but I think they finally figured out what it is, so it's starting to get better.
Okay. Well,
what I was going to say that. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the good thing in this, like, well, I've been, kind of laid up. I've been reflecting a lot, and the memories have come back.
Yeah.
Like what happened with the priest is, like as I said, I never felt it. And about a week ago, when I went to bed, I felt the feelings, and it was safe to feel them.
Yes.
And it was like, I was able to really, I never suppressed it, but I remembered it, and I felt it. So it's like I felt like I was really able to integrate it. And then what was really amazing is then about a week after that, what happened to me as a child, the images started to come.
Yes.
And I've never been, I knew something happened, but I never had the images, but like, different sensations, taste, smells, all of it came back.
Yeah, there it is.
So it helped me to.
Right, the smell and the sounds and the body, like the title of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book. He specializes in trauma, wrote an important book called The Body Keeps the Score, and our bodies will talk to us. They will give us gag responses, or hints of pain, or reliving, like a PTSD, the reliving of the event. And this won't stop until, as you said, you integrate it. So rather than run from it, what you're doing is you're sitting with it, and you're allowing it, and in the context of, this is not your fault. This is not something that you chose. This is not something that you're the cause of. As a matter of fact, you've been at the effect of it. Okay, so now you can stand back and make sense of it and understand why it is that you've been so symptomatic.
Yeah, because after I'd been seeing this therapist a little bit, and after I shared what had happened when I was a kid, but an hour later I was driving to Whole Foods, and I realized I was 5 years old.
Right.
I didn't initiate that.
I don't think so. And, we're hostages to our childhood, and then you went into the priesthood thinking that this was going to be a beautiful, sacred world for you, and it didn't exactly
Oh
turn
no,
out.
I never went into the priest. Yeah, no, I
You
never
didn't.
went into the
Okay.
priesthood. God,
Mm-hmm.
no. I was just, it was just the parish priest. Yeah, I mean, just those shifts in perspective and being able to feel the feelings and validate it for myself.
Yes.
It's like it really has helped in the healing.
Yes, and that's
And
what
I
we
just want to say
need.
anybody else that, I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to say how important an enlightened witness is. It's the opposite of betrayal.
Yeah.
Somebody who says, shut up, don't talk, no, it didn't happen, oh, you're the dirty one, it's all your fault. That's the opposite of, or like the caller before speaking about how her mother denied it and swept it under the rug, and there was no place to turn. It's like, that double dungeon that I talk about. You can't turn to your mother, can't turn to your father. Sometimes you can't even turn to your other family members, and checkmate. You're just locked in this dark, dark hole of betrayal and sadness and depression and anxiety and flashbacks and dreams. And these are the things that keep recurring. I hear it with my patients all the time, these recurrent symptoms and constant triggers. And then the core beliefs, the negative core beliefs, are unbelievable. Core beliefs like I'm worthless, I'm nothing. That seems to be the common one with this type of abuse, the sense of worthlessness, because in essence, somebody's just used your body to get off on you, okay? And so what are you now? That's the epitome of objectification, right? So
Yeah.
and hardly any child will say, that person was really, really sick and it's not my fault. Usually they'll say something like, it's my fault, I'm responsible, I'm the cause, and then that's where it starts turning inward. Anything else you want to tell people about what to do if they have, if they've experienced anything like this? Anything that's been helpful on your journey to healing?
Like with the last caller, what she was saying about she knew something happened, but it sounded like she didn't know quite what. Just trust it, because as I said, with this thing that happened to me as a young child, I knew something had happened. I had a partial memory, but not any details. And it's like I've been able to trust it. And I've just said all along, I know something happened. I don't know what it was.
Right.
And just lo and behold, a week or so ago, the memory started to show up, that more details as to what happened.
And I was just telling somebody
trust
today.
Yourself.
Right. Trust yourself, right? Trust is broken because you can't turn to the people that you think you can trust. And then understand that, like peeling an onion, this symptom will come up and then you integrate it, and then another symptom will come up and you integrate that, and maybe a dream will come up. You're always just kind of putting the pieces together, connecting the dots until you become a whole person, and then you get to see it from a different lens, as opposed to the lens of the victim and the lens of somebody that's hopeless and helpless. Now you're looking from a lens of clarity and power and better boundaries, and hopefully not projecting lack of trust on everyone, because the world doesn't deserve to not be trusted because of some horribly pathological people on the planet. So I really appreciate you calling in. Keep in touch once in a while. Love to hear from you. Okay? And thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night. Do we have another caller? Did that person come back?
She's still here. If you want to bring her back on.
Okay. Are you back on? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I know we've got a few minutes, but maybe share a little bit about what you're doing, how you're getting through this, maybe some of the symptoms that you're
Oh,
experiencing, so people can understand that these symptoms
ye-
are common.
yeah, sure. I've been sexual abused, like I said before, but um, I'm I'm more conscious because I rather prefer conscious than to 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 continue to make mistakes in life because we are not the uh, we didn't cause this,
That's right. Right.
We are, yeah, we didn't cause this.
That's right.
It's just, yeah, just to keep going, to feel strong, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and don't blame my family. I don't blame my mom. I don't blame nobody. I
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
I grow up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you feel that you're selecting better people into your life, that your boundaries are good enough, and you're vetting people
Yes.
that yes, and you have
Yeah.
family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a sign of health when you start picking better people, um, right? When those
Mhm.
PTSD symptoms start dialing down, flashbacks and dreams and
Oh.
anxiety there's so many symptoms, and um, people will just continue to have these symptoms until, as Kevin was saying, till they're integrated. Okay, so that's the work. Go to therapy.
Oh.
Don't cover it up. Don't just leave it swept under the rug like some family members want you to do. Bring it up, because um, when you're conscious of it and you bring it out into the light, it doesn't um, fester and create more toxicity in your system, because that's what's happening when people just sweep it. So I say,
Oh.
yeah, good for you. Just keep dealing with it, and uh, do your therapy, and keep looking at this thing until it doesn't have power over you. Okay, and that's when you know that
Yeah,
you're
that's
you're
right.
shifting from
Very
the
clever. Very clever.
yeah,
Yeah.
so turn it around so that you're not under the wheels of this horrible abuse, but that you're now in a sense separating who you are from what happened to you. Like I like to say, don't identify with it, identify it. Okay, so I write that in my book, and please do grab a copy of it. Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And by the way, everybody, I'm making a real effort to blog about each of my subjects, the YouTube topics. So at my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com, I have a beautiful blog on effects of sexual abuse on the psyche, and you can access that, of course, and feel free to call the clinic with free consultation if you like, or start the work, and ask about my
Okay.
up and coming video called Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. It's going to be very heavy and very, very detail laden with some case studies, and a lot of connecting the dots between what apathy does to the human psyche, and how to get out of the mess and reconnect with yourself primarily, and then others. So I really appreciate you calling in, and thank you, and
Thank
feel free to be
you.
in touch. Okay.
Sure. What is your website again? Psychological,
Psychologicalhealingcenter.com.
psychological healing.
Center.com. Yes. You can always,
Okay. Okay.
yes. All right. So take good care of
Okay.
yourself, and I really appreciate your sharing your life with us today.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. I will read your book. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, are there any other calls, questions in the chat room? Anybody want to ask a last minute question? Um, so what people do in these dire circumstances is they defend, and sometimes the defense keeps them very isolated and alone, as if it's not bad enough to feel isolated and alone because of the abuse. Now people develop aversions to other human beings. Sometimes they develop an aversion to the opposite sex. So if mom or female perpetrated the abuse, they may develop an aversion to the person's sexuality that did that to them. And so it really, really, really distorts everything. And just a couple of other things I wanted to go back into um, the some more facts about post-traumatic stress if not treated immediately. Flashbacks, nightmares, emotional numbing, startle responses, depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, meaning hatred of the body, drug abuse, other symptoms that numb you, other alcohol abuse, and anything that numbs you out and avoids, and of course the dangers of imploding and suiciding. So please take it seriously. If you're having these feelings, get help immediately, and don't hesitate to call at the Psychological Healing Center. And if you know of anybody who's being sexually abused, especially if they're a minor, pick up the phone and call your local Department of Family Services, Child and Family Services, DCFS. And there should be an easy number for you to Google that's local that you can use to prevent this from transmitting to others in the next generation. So thank you very much, everyone, for your comments and your calls, and I will see you next time. Good night, everyone.